Hello, everybody. Good evening. Welcome to the Evangelical Dark Web. We're going to have a fun night tonight trying to dive into some Southern Baptist conspiracies because there's a lot going on in the Southern Baptist Convention, and I have not done the amount of videos that I would have liked to have done on the Southern Baptist Convention this month because there have been a lot of news. I have yet to do a video on Adam Greenway being ousted, and because that happened on a Friday news dump. So that's what happened with the Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary. That was a Friday news dump. We also had some churches get kicked out of the Southern Baptist Convention. We're going to discuss that. And what's the deal with Al Mohler? We're going to kind of dive back into that as well. We have covered probably that the most. And joining me tonight is Berean Babes over at the channel Berean Babes. So how are you doing tonight, Violet?
I'm great. Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be back.
So, and it's good to have you. It's good to have you back. Last time you were on this channel, you tried to talk me down from the cliff of disavowing the Conservative Baptist Network.
I tried.
And you know what? Since then, we've seen a lot of churches leave the Southern Baptist Convention. So there's a lot of hype. So there's a lot of people that in and of themselves also voted no confidence in the Conservative Baptist Network, just in a different sort of way. And honestly, another thing, like John Harris had a guest on his channel that echoed the same thing, basically saying that the Conservative Baptist Network, this movement isn't actually fighting for the Southern Baptist Convention. So he had a guest on that basically said the same thing. Yeah, after I said
you have another supporter there, Ray. You have another supporter with your view on CBN.
I don't think in a couple of years I think I'm going to be more and more vindicated on that because that's just going to get us into the Al Mohler topic tonight. But we have a lot of topics to discuss tonight. We have Al Mohler at Al Mohler being Al Mohler. We have Adam Greenway gone from Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary. A couple churches being kicked out. And I think our kicker topic for tonight will probably be Trevin Wax. So you interested in this? This is the latest article at the Evangelical Dark Web is Trevin Wax. So I'm going to play a clip.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm Trevin Wax. In October, I'm starting a new podcast called Reconstructing Faith that examines the state of the American church's witness. For years now, we've seen the church rocked by sin and scandal, and our credibility as Christ's followers has been diminished. Reconstructing Faith avoids the simplistic, knee-jerk reactions you see on social media, and instead looks at the church the same way you'd look at your home after a natural disaster, say a flood. We'll examine the foundations of the church that have stood the test of time, both here in America and around the world. We'll also examine the rot in the church, the attitudes and practices that have sprung up over the decades, like mold. While there's been a lot of bad news, we've got to remember the good news of the gospel and work within the church to restore and rebuild its witness so that people experience the majesty of Jesus. I hope you'll join me.
So that is from the North American Mission Board. That is a podcast that they are launching with Trevin Wax, who is a frequent writer on the Gospel Coalition. He's one of their main stars over at the Gospel Coalition, but he's also an employee at the North American Mission Board, to my knowledge. He works there.
Yes, he is still there.
And that's a podcast series that the North American Mission Board is launching kind of off the trend of deconstructing faith, and they're trying to like reconstruct it. So it's a pretty interesting little bit of news. It kind of gives me a flashback to 2020 when the Gospel Coalition launched the As in Heaven podcast, which went really woke. It was a Marxist podcast that they launched in 2020. And Trevin Wax was a guest on that podcast, and he went really woke. But otherwise, ever since, Trevin Wax has been the effeminate writer at the Gospel Coalition. In the beginning of the year, he was the writer that said not to share woke preacher clips. So that was back in January. And then he wrote something last week about discernment ministries and false discernment or whatever. And it's just like, okay, you write for the Gospel Coalition, but And it's fun because none of his criticisms really affect me. Like I don't really meet his criticisms or not. But it was just kind of an interesting note. So that is can Trevin Wax save the church? I guess is our first topic for today. And if you're in the chat, don't forget to comment, and like the stream because it's a good stream. Liking helps with the magical YouTube algorithms.
The algorithm monster.
It is a monster. So first topic tonight is the Trevin Wax NAMB podcast. And I just think this is just so reminiscent of the Gospel Coalition's As in Heaven podcast. And some of the stated topics are they're going to cover sex abuse in the church was one of the topics that they wanted to cover.
That would just be the Me Church 2 movement going on.
The deconstruction phenomenon that you see on social media being nice. And eventually they're going to talk about political engagement, which I think is interesting. They'll probably do that episode before the election, which is about 5 or 6 weeks away, or probably 5 weeks at this point. But that I just thought this was just a pathetic attempt at trying to gain or maintain relevancy by the North American Mission Board. They are the producers of this podcast, not the Gospel Coalition.
So is that their good idea for them just to shoot with him speaking, not showing his face on the
this is a trailer. This is a trailer for
that
a
was
podcast.
Just like a trailer for their
podcast. And just the idea is like we're gonna fix the church from within the church is kind of what they kind of build themselves as. And it's like the North American Mission Board is the problem. So, and then Trevin Wax and Gospel Coalition are the problems. So I just
we know TGC things that's been going on with TGC, but he does have a huge following, so I think they will have the audience. Whether it's going to solve any problem, I just don't think so. Because what else is he going to say that's going to be new that TGC is not already doing?
Trevin Wax is a book selling machine or book writing machine. I don't know how great he is at selling books, but I do know he is a prolific writer, and I mean that in the sense of volume more so than mass, or than in quality, I should say, because I've read his Gospel Coalition articles and done some videos on them. So when I did that one video about the Gospel Coalition being a defeated organization, that was based off primarily his driving of the Gospel Coalition, because him and Colin Hansen are probably the two biggest names. Joe Carter will write a BuzzFeed article every once in a while, but
that's what they've been trying to rebrand themselves, because I think they know that they've lost footing in a way. But I don't know, because some people who are in their camp, they're just in their camp.
It's a huge organization. They are a huge website. They dwarf entities like the Christian Post and stuff like that. So they are a huge website. And they just launched 2 more locations because the people in Ukraine and Russia want to read the Gospel Coalition, apparently.
Oh, okay. So I hope
that's new on the Gospel Coalition. So I guess they'll translate Trevin Wax's articles to Ukrainian and Russian respectively.
Over there. There was another guy. He was I forgot his name. He had actually written a very nice article talking about the wolves, like teachers who are wolves. It was a very good article, well written, everything, and it was on Gospel Coalition. I was just like, oh, okay.
I actually like the article that Brett McCracken did on the Manti Te'o documentary, but it largely echoed much of the same points that I made in the article that I wrote. That was probably still better, but still, I will give.
So they do have some of the decent writers there, but
Brett McCracken's not a good writer. He is someone.
No. I'm talking about other. I wish I could remember that guy's name, because I was surprised that they would actually publish that on TGC. It was a very nice article. I actually did a video on my show as well, so I was surprised.
So our next topic, I want to talk about the disfellowshipping of non-Southern Baptist churches.
Finally.
This, that was just our warm-up topic. And if you're in the chat, feel free to submit questions and stuff like that. But disfellowshipping non-Southern Baptist churches, the Credentials Committee, September is a really big month for the Southern Baptist Convention. It's probably the second biggest month of the year. other than June is when the annual
June.
meeting
Mhm.
happens. But September is when all of the entities meet. So all these trustees and all these entities meet, and they have their annual meetings in September. And the Credentials Committee announced that they would disfellowship only 2 churches, or recommend disfellowshipping of only 2 churches in the Southern Baptist Convention. The first church was a church that had left the Southern Baptist Convention a long time ago. They touted on their website affiliations with liberal Baptist denominations. So they might have started out as a Southern Baptist church. I believe this was in College Park, North Carolina.
Yeah.
But the thing is, they left the Southern Baptist Convention a long time ago. So they weren't even a Southern Baptist church. And I'm shocked, they only had one instance of that a year. I get that the Credentials Committee can't exactly be expected to do their jobs a whole lot. But nonetheless, there's a lot more churches that they could have looked into or recommended disfellowshipping on. Rick Warren's Saddleback Church
They're not
would be
gonna
the
disfellowship Rick Warren. He's bringing money. So why
well.
would you disfellowship your
Here's the
money-making
thing:
machine?
Rick Warren has resigned from being the senior pastor at Saddleback Church,
Yes,
and
they
that
have
change
him.
went into effect earlier this month. It's been a long month. We're 29 days in. But here's the kicker. So obviously a year ago, he ordained 3 women pastors.
Mhm.
However, here's the kicker. His replacement, Andy Wood, is basically a co-pastor with his wife.
Yes.
So they're going to have to deal with that level of thinking in a Southern Baptist church. If anything, his replacement actually means that church is going to go in a more egalitarian direction. So the
Yeah,
evidence
but
for disfellowshipping that church has just mounted even more.
yeah, but like Ray, the evidence is there to them to disfellowship Rick Warren's church, but there's no way they are going to disfellowship Rick Warren's church. That's just not a secret.
Here's the thing. They don't know the difference between a pastor and a senior pastor. They think there's a biblical distinction.
Oh,
But
God, yeah.
that biblical distinction is going to go away when your new senior pastor is a co-pastor with his wife.
That's why
They're not going to have that distinction anymore. That's the funny part.
Either way, to me, I think these 2 churches, they ended up disfellowshipping. They were pretty much low-hanging fruit. Not only that, apparently, it takes forever to be removed, to be disfellowshipped as an SBC church. So in theory, yes, you might have left and everything, but you're still in their books as part of their church. So even though this church left long time ago, it's still there until they get disfellowship.
Right.
So as far as Rick Warren Church is concerned, I mean, this is a mega church in California, and they have helped NAMB planting a whole bunch of churches. So I just don't see anybody voting to disfellowship them. I just don't see that happening. I mean, if these people could not stand to define what a pastor is, now you're telling me they're gonna get rid of their corporate program that's coming out of that church, 11%.
So this is the other church that they disfellowshipped, and I think this is the far more interesting story. And they disfellowshipped this random church in New Jersey over allegations of racism, but really it had more to do with the fact that they didn't really reply
Or
to
they were not cooperative. That's what it said.
Yes, so they didn't exactly respond to accusations of racism. So this was the other church that was disfellowshipped. And this is a far more interesting story because this church is not Southern Baptist in theology. And I want to be clear about that. How this church is in the Southern Baptist Convention, I don't know, because they're not a Baptist church. And that is the more interesting part. I mean,
think
obviously
they were planted out of a Southern Baptist church.
I mean, that's possible, but I don't know the story of this. They never responded to comment. Like I did reach out to them for comment, but I guess, they treated me like the Credentials Committee and just did not respond. But this church was, Amazing Grace Baptist Church in Franklinville, New Jersey. Not exactly a Southern Baptist statement. I digress. And they were removed due to lack of cooperation demonstrated by the church to resolve concerns regarding alleged discriminatory behavior that Amazing Grace Community Church in Franklinville, New Jersey, no longer be considered a church in friendly cooperation with the Southern Baptist Convention. But here's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
They aren't a Baptist church. And I have a pull quote here from their constitution that states, in any growing congregation, there will be people at all stages of spiritual growth and maturity. For that reason, it is not proper to submit the affairs of the church to a democratic vote, as the same is not God's way. For the purpose of the church is not to do the will of the majority, but the will of God. Any disputes that arise over the interpretation of these bylaws shall be deferred to the highest human authority of this church, the board of elders, who shall remain under the authority of the biblical head of the church, Jesus Christ. So that is an anti-Baptist statement in their constitution. And the reason why that's anti-Baptist is because Baptist polity is congregationalist.
Yes.
There are two things that make a Baptist a Baptist.
Yeah.
One is dunking, immersion, credo Baptist immersion. And the other is polity and Baptist polity. So this is not actually a Southern Baptist church. So, yet they are disfellowshipped from the Southern Baptist Convention. I think that's highly interesting. And that's before we get into whether the alleged racism actually occurred in the Southern Baptist Convention. Because I think everyone's BS meter is completely going off at the idea that this church was actually disfellowshipped over race and discriminatory behavior.
Yeah, that's why I think these two were way too low-hanging fruit.
And yeah, and I guess there's a reason. And then Amazing Grace had Hispanic people on their Facebook page recommending their church. It looked like a multi-ethnic church from the pictures that I could see on social media. They were a multi-ethnic church from what I could find. And they were a church that doesn't actually meet in a physical building from what I can tell. They meet on campgrounds and a pavilion. I think they have outdoor services. So this is a very interesting church. They're not your everyday typical garden variety church, but they also don't seem big enough to have an issue where they would be expanding rapidly and would have discriminatory behaviors in their hiring practices or anything like that. But again, the other weird fact is, how would someone in that church know to report their grievance to the Southern Baptist Convention?
Yeah. So maybe somebody with connections.
There's nothing on their website that says that they are a Southern Baptist church. And
yeah, but like there's gotta be something there that's not showing, because like it doesn't make sense. These credentials could not just sit down and decide to disfellowship a church that wasn't. Or maybe at some point it was, they just left. But like I said, it takes a long time to actually get removed from the SBC convention, so to speak.
I mean, I would agree with that. It probably does take a very long time. This story is a mystery to me, and it keeps me up at night a little bit because of how just much of a conspiracy rabbit trail this story will put you down. It's like, how would someone know to report their grievances to the Southern Baptist Convention if they don't even know they're going to a Southern Baptist church? Did they like physically look through the Southern Baptist thing and then suddenly know that there was a credentials committee that they could report to? It's a very odd instance that the credentials committee would have us believe, but nonetheless, that is what happened.
Yeah.
And I guess the credentials committee, we don't need to keep sharing screen. They would eventually disfellowship this church for not responding to accusations. Which, if they only
which means there was a correspondence that took place. That's why these people are being accused of not responding.
But what if the people that were, in charge of responding didn't even know they were in a Southern Baptist church?
No, Ray, that's way too much now.
Hey, they didn't respond to my emails, so maybe they just don't have a working email function. I don't know.
Oh, man.
So
I don't.
I think that's just a wild story. And, perhaps it's setting the tone or example that, people feared, because before it was an executive committee that used to handle disfellowshipping, but now they created the credentials committee, which will execute the disfellowshipping activities. But keeping in mind that this is all voted on by the Southern Baptist Convention at the annual meeting. So this is a recommendation that they were going to forward. It is probably going to be in the credentials committee report, and then the convention will vote to accept or reject the credentials committee report. So I
which they
believe
will
that's the process.
accept.
Yes. That's the process by my understanding of the bylaws.
Yeah.
So that is kind of like the fear is like a couple years ago when the credentials committee was formed, and the credentials committee is definitely to the left of the executive committee because when it was formed, it was J.D. Greer and his appointees, and then it was Ed Litton's appointees, and now
it's Bud Barber.
Bart Barber will
Same
make some
people.
appointees for the next year to enter the committee. So the fear was that these people would disfellowship churches for not being woke enough. And you could see that in instances like FBC Naples, where they didn't hire Marcus Hayes because he was woke, because he was a Kamala Harris lover. And he was also pretty weak
as
on,
well.
Yeah, he was also pretty weak on the issue of homosexuality and sexuality, very much in more towards the Reboys camp. But you could see the credentials committee abused and therefore disfellowship a church like that, especially since the North American Mission Board and J.D. Greer lobbied heavily for that action to hire Marcus Hayes. So they lobbied heavily for that. So you could see this type of credentials committee doing that. So that is, my the theory back then was that this credentials committee would be used to disfellowship faithful churches, to purge conservative churches.
And Naples, that was man, because there was a documentary that they did. I think Judd was also involved in there. Of Naples, it was just like, wow, this is crazy. And Marcus was there last time, on one of the pastors on high up during the convention last, June.
Yeah, so because he is you're right, he was there. And he's I believe is a pastor of a church in Ohio now. So he got what didn't work out the first time did work out a second time in Ohio. And that was the fear that this credentials committee could be used and abused. And I think to some degree we are starting to see the examples being made. This is not the first church to be disfellowshipped for accusations of racism, but this is the first church the credentials committee has recommended disfellowship over racism. And the credentials committee, like I said, they're appointed by J.D. Greer and a few of the other liberal presidents.
They will actually be the same type of people thinking wise. From J.D. to Ed Litton to Bud Barber, pretty much the same. I don't know. Did you see what there was another church also, Grace Point? It was planted. They were in conjunction planting churches with NAMB. Now they've been people who have come out with, I think, credible accusation of abuse, stuff like that. It was on Christianity Today.
I think I saw something on Dissenter about a NAMB church. It was like a Korean church or something like that.
Yeah, but Asian
I
church.
am very wary of accusations of spiritual abuse. I think we have overused that term.
Yes, I know that things have been overabused, but the pastor who is there now, I don't know, maybe they just admitted to let these things go away. There's members who've come out, and there's members, you know how it is. But they said they were very controlling. They're making them use their credit card to support missions. It was a card type like.
That's interesting. I have not looked into that just because when I saw spiritual abuse, I kind of got disinterested in the entire story. Now, I cannot be the only one that gets disinterested in the story when they see the term spiritual abuse.
They did articulate the abuse that they.
Yeah, that's good that they did, but I just, you lost me at the headline. So
what term should they use, Ray?
Cult-like practices would be nice.
Okay.
Let's go into credit card debt to support a missionary. It's like that, that's a cult-like practice. Like, I don't think, we don't need to overuse the word abuse when there's clear Scientology going on in a
like
Baptist
spiritual abuse
church.
carries a lot of weight. You know what I mean? People want to use strong words. So I do think, like, yes, that word has been overused. So now when people say it, even if that might have actually happened, but because it's been overused, it's almost like what are you saying now? Because, there's already a fight going on. Doug Wilson is also being accused of spiritual abuse by Costi.
I mean, man, I've been looking into that story, and to be honest, like, I can't keep my head straight on all this federal vision stuff.
He just came out and
but
he just apologized like 10 minutes ago.
Really? Was
So
this before or at and while he's still going after Michael O'Fallon?
No, he deleted that. He just
Okay.
20 minutes ago issued an apology, and tomorrow he's going to put a public statement out, and then he's gonna have private talks with Doug Wilson.
So, and we might as well digress into this rabbit hole of Doug Wilson versus Cosby
I've
Hinn.
taken us elsewhere.
And no, I like this rabbit hole. I was thinking about doing a stream on this rabbit hole, but I'd have to learn more of there's an uphill battle of well, what's the deal with all these people who hate Doug Wilson? Obviously, there are some people in my own audience that think he's a heretic, but it's I don't really see it. And then I guess he's a little inconsistent on the issue of federal vision, but at the same time, what people call federal vision isn't federal vision. So who can keep up with that? But
So I think because it just came out of nowhere. You see what I'm saying? Literally out of the blue. I saw the tweet because I think, I don't know, maybe from what it looks like, I think Costi Hinn was not aware about some of these controversies that have taken place because the federal vision issue, happened a long time ago. So
that was 2003.
Yeah. So I think Cost just stumbled upon those, and then he decided to share that, oh, guys, you guys are always out here amending Doug Wilson. Please take a listen to this podcast. And then lo and behold, the person in podcast used to be a Doug Wilson fan. He's no longer a Doug Wilson fan. And according to Costi, he has members in his church.
No Compromise podcast or No Compromise Radio or whatever they call themselves. And the other thing is that podcast heavily relied on a Twitter account or Facebook group or whatever called Moscow Watch. Which is this anti-Doug Wilson, and highly feminist, and very liberal, Twitter account.
So Costi was swept up on that. Not only that, ended up comparing Doug Wilson to Mark Driscoll.
And again, I'm actually willing to cut Mark Driscoll a lot more slack because I think the people who hated Mark Driscoll are actually worse than Mark Driscoll.
But I don't know, Ray. Driscoll is way out there.
He's way out there, but I think he's actually improved himself. That's the thing. I'm not saying he's great, and I don't listen to him much at all. But from what I can see, there is some evidence of growth in a positive direction. And
I don't know. That guy is Driscoll came out, rebranded himself. Now he's building his online empire. He denounced Calvinism, and he says, "Oh no, people who just like Calvinism, they just have daddy issues." Well, you were preaching this before, so now what has changed? Okay, so he denounced all those things so he can create a new system of people, and he actually registered his church as a family business.
That's weird. I should look
he
more
doesn't
into
want it to be taken away from him, like what happened last time. So he covered all his bases.
I mean, he's probably afraid of elder struggles, and I get that.
No, now he doesn't have. He stayed for quite some time, no elders. Now he has his, yes boys as his elders. But
I think he has like friends from different churches in different states as an elder board. I think that's what he currently does. Not the
yes, the
most
elder
sound
board is not from his
practice,
church, but
but
it's
I
a
guess
Jewish
in
school.
terms of like if you listen to the Christianity Today podcast on him, is like the clips that they would play of him were often his best preaching.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I mean, like, no, he wasn't.
because they
You know,
really
like he
disliked
definitely
him
did have his
for
haters, but
they really disliked him for a more masculine approach. That's
yes,
really
exactly.
why they
He's
disliked
yes,
him.
like very patriarchal. So
And even was it the other guy, Howard Brown,
I don't know
who
Howard Brown.
I know Rodney Howard Brown. It's like, yeah, he's the way he is, but you know what? He also opened his church during lockdowns and fought the government on that. So he has
Okay.
balls. You people, he has more balls than you, Cossey Hin, because where were you on that
Yeah.
fight?
Yeah.
But yeah, and that's kind
So
of the issue. Like, because here's where Costi Hin is right, but he would be right if he had, say, my background on this issue, and that is James Lindsay. I think he is right to point out that we shouldn't really be allying with James Lindsay. I actually fully agree with that.
okay. Like I know like people I don't know, Ray. Like I differ. I don't have any problem with Lindsay per se.
I mean, here's the
Because
thing.
like when he came on the scene, when he was saying whatever he was saying, people were not saying the things that he was saying within the church.
Yeah, they were,
So
though.
but
It's just
who?
safer to promote. I mean, John Harris was still on the scene.
Yeah, I mean, like
Lodi Bakken
I
was
mean,
still
like
on the
people
scene.
just started like now acknowledging John Harris, but like John Harris, the AD Robles, this where nobody paid them
They
no
just
mind.
didn't do it as well on Twitter. That's the difference. These people existed. They just didn't have the Twitter following or the bona fide skill at using Twitter, because James Lindsay's kind of like Charlie Kirk. Like, where would Charlie
Yeah,
Kirk
because
be without
I
Twitter?
think it's because of
Nowhere.
the connections that James Lindsay came in. You see what I'm saying? He's
I
connected
don't.
to Michael Fallon. Then you
Well, he
ended up over
became
there at the
connected
G3.
to Michael O'Fallon.
Yeah,
But
so Michael Fallon has connections.
here's the thing: James Lindsay is a one-trick pony. He's good on the issue of critical race theory and Marxism. Okay. But that's basically it. Like, he bought into lockdowns and branch Covidianism, so he was promoting the World Economic Forum agenda, and now he's all of a suddenly trying to say that he's against it all and
Yeah,
stuff
he is
like that.
definitely, I guess.
Then he's like very pro-abortion, so he's wrong on that, and just not a. I just don't see us needing him, because I think, again, I've said this before, and I'll say it again: critical race theory is yesterday's issue. It's not today's issue.
Yeah. I
So,
agree. So, but
but here, just to circle back to Cossey
yeah.
Hin, where was he yesterday on critical race theory?
That's why, that he did not answer to that. He's just, to him, he said he's warning the church because people are so eager with, I mean, because that's also the problem that he did. He put everybody in one basket. He can have sympathizers with James Lindsay situation, but now he's fighting the James Lindsay, Michael Fallon, and Doug Wilson. So now he's looking like, okay, this guy is just desperate. He's trying to stick something to the wall, basically. So the issues that he's talking about with Doug Wilson, according to Costi Hin, he has members in his church who, wait for it, claimed spiritual abuse.
Yeah. And I watched the last week I did a video on the NBC special that they did on Doug Wilson and his movement of Christian nationalism, which is based, by the way. And the spiritual abuse was, they don't want women wearing pants. And, they don't want me looking the way that I look. And it's like, I'm sure she was a lot prettier before she did that to herself. And like the lady has like drawn on eyebrows and piercings and then like really short hair, and the husband or whatever looks like he wears skinny jeans. It's like, yeah, I'm sure if they are extreme on gender roles, you are the least credible people to articulate that, because you're exemplifying why he's right.
Yeah, so
But
that didn't even help. So that's the
and
situation. But
then I
anyway,
guess the other thing is like they go after Doug Wilson for, marrying someone who was a pedophile. Let's say he was
yes.
repentant, because it seems like there was evidence that from his perspective, he had evidence to say that this guy has shown a demonstrable
Mhm.
pattern of repentance. Because there's like, and then they say that he failed a polygraph or something, which isn't even admissible in court. But I digress. I'm not sure what exactly that means. And I'm not sure if I should believe everything that's on a Facebook graphic or whatever either. But, and that was like a decade after Doug Wilson like married him or whatever.
Yeah.
Not
So of
like
course
married him in the ceremony is what I mean. Not
yeah.
like,
No, so of course he throw
so.
everybody under the bus, including G3. And then he accused James
Yes,
White
because
of
G3, it was Jenna Ellis. And, this is where, I guess G3, does need some pushback, because like Jenna Ellis kind of, in my opinion, overplays how much she was the lawyer for John MacArthur's church.
It's a selling point.
It's a selling point, but I'm pretty sure like there's this foundation of which she's not a part of that handled the case.
Yeah,
And
I
I
mean,
forget what the name of the foundation
I'm not
was.
familiar with Jenna Ellis myself either, but if I were her and I had anything to do with the case, anybody, Ray, would run with it. It's a selling point for her. So,
It is, but she
don't.
was Trump's lawyer, which is probably how she got that, even though she was not good as Trump's lawyer
Yeah,
for the
but
election.
you put that
But
on your resume. Come on.
hey, if I was one of Trump's election lawyers, I would not put that on my resume, because they did a bad job, and we're all paying the consequences because of how bad that legal strategy was, aren't we?
Yeah. So yeah, she said I went to a conference
But
actually. I was at the G3
and other
conference.
than that, I actually really like Jenna Ellis. Other than
Uh-huh.
that, I just don't.
Yeah, like I
As
saw
a
her
lawyer, I
speaking.
don't think I like her that much. But as a person, as a believer, as a pundit,
she
I think she's pretty above average.
Yeah, I was surprised. I was at the conference and she was, one of the
But
speakers on the panel. And I was surprised. Like, she's, stated things there strongly and everything. Of course, she always wants you to know that she was Donald Trump's lawyer and John MacArthur. I'm like, okay, run with it. I'll do the same thing if I were you. But at least she had solid points, because I was also under the same view. Like, okay, every time I want to hear something that Jenna Ellis is going to say, despite being affiliated with Trump or Joe MacArthur. So,
all right,
you know.
that's first. I want to say hello to David Morrill, and also
Hey,
hello
Devin.
to Doctrinal Watchdog, who was kind of a subject of last week's live stream.
Oh yeah, because he got into it to Dr. Oshtok with you.
It's funny. That was just funny because it's like Michael Winger's like, you misrepresented me. Let me show you the smoke. Let me tell you that I ordered the code red.
I know. Then I was just like, wait a minute. He just made things worse. I'm like, what are you doing, Mike Winger? Like struggling to denounce Joe Austin? Like, come on.
Yeah.
I know.
So, just the Kasi Hin thing just really throws me off, because again, if he was on the front lines against critical race theory in the church, and then you're criticizing Michael O'Fallon for bringing in James Lindsay, I think you have credibility.
I grant that. Yeah.
But because I think James Lindsay is a one-trick pony. I would say he's a grifter. But where was Costi Hin has mostly been on the front lines of the prosperity gospel fight, which is the lowest hanging fruit. Like if this is a hanging fruit, this is a pumpkin. Like that is how low hanging fruit to the ground.
Hey, pumpkin.
Yes. Benny Hinn is a pumpkin in terms of low hanging fruit.
Well, tell that to Mike Winger.
Yes. And I don't know how much what is the thresh? No, I think Mike Winger actually says that Benny Hinn's a false teacher. So.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think Ben Hinn, but Bill Johnson, he couldn't. I think Bill and Joe Austin, those are also low hanging fruit that he couldn't, whatever. But yeah, Costi got himself in trouble. But at least he's issued an apology and he deleted some of the stuff. So, but I don't know. I think I'm also even wondering, like, okay, so who are these people that he's listening to? Because he said Michael Fallon was telling people that watch out about Costihini. He's a double agent. He likes to carry water for Ed Seltzer. For Ed Seltzer, you know.
Oh, Ed
So
Stetzer? Yeah.
Ed Stetzer, yeah.
So Ed
So
Stetzer is one of the first people that blocked me on Twitter in Big Evil World. So I'm a
yeah.
hold on. So that's Ed Stetzer, and I actually have a lot of like, when I was in church, I was on a task force, and I'm writing a book, and I tell the story in that. I was on a task force on transformational church, and that's based off a book written by Ed Stetzer and Tom Rainer. So Tom Rainer, I believe, was a former head of Lifeway. So this was around 2014, 2013. And he, in this entire mindset was the transformational church, and it was trying to like a church trying to do a tune-up of itself. And the material was just so empty-headed for the church that we were in. Because, Maryland is a very transient place. Like, we don't have a small town mentality that say other towns, other states have. You can go to a church that's 2 towns over.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So the entire, it was a very Tim Keller, let's focus on your city type of mentality that Ed Stetzer was pushing at the time. And it just did not fit the church any church in Maryland, really, because this was a church that relied on highway access on I-70. So it was just very useless and unhelpful material. So I thought that was.
Yeah. So yeah, man. So it's been Costi not good. It was good. So because he did and like there's little like females who detest a lot of Doug Wilson. So they were clapping for Costi, and I think Costi was like, okay, I got this one. And then he carried on. But I think what's the name? AD came after him hard.
All right, we got a
AD came after
special guest coming on.
Look at you, David. Yeah.
David
You just
Morrill,
finished your show?
thanks for the super chat, and now you have sufficiently bribed me into joining. But remember, the Bible does not condemn the person who pays the bribe, only the person that accepts the bribe in God's law.
No, you're not gonna say no. David is a true Baptist. He throws a 20 in a plate real quick.
Just kidding. One of these days I was gonna invite you on, but I don't know what days you are and aren't doing live streams yourself, so I cannot hear you at the moment. We
can't hear you, David. Wow, he's just talking. He has no idea right now. He's dropping in jewels.
Yeah. David, you on mute. But so.
But I didn't like what. So, David, can you hear us now?
Yeah.
Okay.
There we go.
Whatever you said, we didn't hear because you were on mute.
All right, David this is the second time on the Evangelical Dark Web because you were our live correspondent at the SBC last year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably not this time. Who knows? I say that and then I go back anyway. So
yeah, no, I think this time is going to be even more fun in New Orleans.
So I imagine the Costi Hen thing kind of piqued your interest. What's your kind of take on this weird situation?
I mean, and yeah, we just finished talking about it over there, but I think, here's the thing is I like Costi and I like Michael Fallon. I like Sovereign Nations. I kind of like Doug Wilson. Is like, I like them all.
Yeah.
But I don't understand why it came out the way that it did. I mean, I have my theories about why Costi may have picked this time or the sort of mode with this. But I don't, it seemed like he's been having these issues maybe with these guys behind the scenes, certainly with Michael Fallon, probably behind the scenes for some time.
Yes.
And then it boiled over and he decided, well, it's time to go and let's have this out. And I think that probably to the extent it's any of our business, because I really, you think this is ironic for someone that's at Protestia not to want to know the dirt. But so like, I don't care. I don't care what their personal beef was. I care about perhaps the theology or the doctrine that then feeds into the fight against social justice and the culture war. That's all important. You know, I'm a Reformed Baptist. I'm probably very, very close, if not identical, to theologically to Mike O'Fallon, and probably identical or at least very close to Costi Hinn. And so now to have these two guys sort of fighting about this on paper, they're very similar as far as their theology. And I think that perhaps there's some personal stuff that's gone on, because like Costi Hinn had he had some red flags, I would say, some red flags in the last few years that all concerned us. Like, writing for Religion News Service in and of itself is not,
yikes.
Yeah, it's a yikes, but it's not like I don't assume, because of the way that Religion News Service works, that everybody there is all like in lockstep theologically. Okay.
I mean,
so you set that aside for a second, but then within the article, he's positively referring to a Beth Moore tweet, like, hey, she's got her issues, but this is spot on. And then proceeds to quote Beth Moore in a way that anybody could have said that. This wasn't some unique insight from Beth Moore, which like, Beth Moore saying something that everybody would say is not a reason to quote her, especially if she's a troubling person to endorse. So that was a red flag. And then he linked to a Russell Moore tweet, again, another red flag. And so, okay, so set that aside and say those are troubling things. It wouldn't surprise me to see Michael O'Fallon or someone at Sovereign Nations being, hey, watch out for Costi. He's got to watch out. He's woke. Watch out for him. And then it takes a while, at least in my experience with these guys, it takes a while once you're sort of put in that category of, hey, you're writing for the Gospel Coalition. You got articles of Religion News Service. You're sort of putting this time out. It takes forever to get them to trust you again. And maybe that's a criticism I would say against the Sovereign Nation guys or whatever. Don't be so quick to just put somebody out and leave them out. You can tell Costi was taking this personally. He had a real issue with this.
Especially with the Michael Fallon situation. He took, because I was like, wait a minute, because he didn't hesitate. He just came even after Dr. White, just as and you are also friends with what's his name, Michael Brown. So you you're a problem. I'm like, okay, so now guilty by association.
I mean, what was it? William Wolf, who's been like a mediocre rise in like conservative Baptist Twitter world, just started writing for Christian Post, which I think is that's a little bit of a red flag, but that's more of a red flag to me because I think their writers are typically bad at this. Michael Brown being one of the chief writers there.
Mm-hmm.
And so the question is like, so we read a William Wolf article on Christian Post, we start by, I would argue we should start by taking that article in and of itself, because again, the way that Christian Post works,
they'll write better things.
We got to watch for the drift. Will there be a drift because of that association?
Right.
It's something we should be on. That's why evangelical dark web exists and protesting exists to be that watch guard, hey,
and
a drift going
one
on
of the things that I make clear, because I try to have a more objective, standard for, saying that someone's a false teacher. And one of the things that's not on the list is automatic association.
Right.
I think that's what happened to Costi there.
I think the closest you get to like an automatic association being like a real label is if you're a pastor in the Hillsong organization, or like Chris Valentin under Bill Johnson. Like, I think, that's your closest example for guilty by association, but that largely comes from the fact that you've probably
that's guilt by yoking.
Guilt by yoking. I like that.
Yes. So that's not like, I preached at the Passion Conference, which is a red flag, but nonetheless.
And see here, and if someone does that, they preach at the Passion Conference, and then they're challenged, they're called out. Hey, you got a whole bunch of other preachers on this list that are concerning, and then they waffle, and then they pull a Mike Winger. I don't know, I can call him a false teacher, that kind of a thing. That's concerning, right? And I told this to Tim Hurd earlier today, and I don't want to hijack your live stream and start talking about Mike Winger and Tim Hurd. But I told Tim, if you're doing online ministry, You're doing, and not necessarily polemics or discernment, but you're doing online ministry like Mike Winger does. Discernment is a required part of the recipe, because people will take what you say or don't say and use that as a measuring stick for everything else they see. So someone like Winger that's on YouTube all the time and is providing largely true teaching, largely true. Like, I'm a Calvinist, so I'm not gonna, he goes hard against Calvinism. Fine, we'll set that aside for a second. Largely true teaching, but then gets the end of it and like, he stops at a certain point, and the point seems to be, I'm going to offend this little group of Christians over here. He won't judge anybody to be outside of salvation, outside the kingdom. And biblically, we're instructed to do just that. So he's stopping. He's not finishing the process here with someone like a Bill Johnson. I mean, how can you say Bill Johnson is, I'm not willing to say he's a false teacher because, well, he has the essentials of the gospel. Like, dude, no, he doesn't. He doesn't have the essentials of the gospel. He writes right over him with his own theology. And Mike more or less admits that, and then gets the end and he's like, well, I don't want to lose subscribers here. So how can I sort of massage this? How can I pull back a little bit? Because, I want plausible deniability, for criticizing Bethel Church.
Yeah. And, he's just trying to split the baby, and it just doesn't really logically work like that. So, yeah. But I guess we're going to try and circle back and not rehash last week's stream, but it's good to have it.
Well, and I used the same exact passage to talk about Mike O'Fallon and Costi Hinn as we were looking at with Mike Winger. And basically this idea that there is a different standard. There is a biblical standard that we have to employ when it comes to people claiming the name of Christ, that I think is different from someone who's an atheist, like, Jordan Peterson or something like that, who doesn't claim Christ. Jordan Peterson is a lot less risky in putting Christ's name in reproach than
the
Bill
problem
Johnson,
with Jordan Peterson
Christ.
is he has been brought on to, like, talk about the Bible and allegorize it. And
I don't like that.
The other thing is, I just think he's very milquetoast. I don't understand how someone built a reputation saying, I don't want to be forced by the government to use preferred pronouns, but if you ask me to, I will. Like, it's just such a weak statement. And then the actual guy, I'm forgetting his name all of a sudden, but the teacher in Ireland that got jailed for it, and by a Christian school, nonetheless, a supposedly Christian school, would rather throw him in jail than say, hey, our bad. We didn't mean for it to get this far. They would rather throw him in jail. So he actually did what Jordan Peterson wouldn't have done. So, but Jordan Peterson's got the millions and the bennies, the Canadian bennies.
A Canadian.
The other thing is, he's like been wrong. And we talked about this on a live stream on Jordan Peterson, was that he's wrong on like 3 of the 4 most important global issues. He was wrong on lockdowns. He was wrong. I forget which one it is. Like, I'm trying to remember which one he was right on, because I don't think it was climate change. So he's like wrong there as well. I'm trying to remember what the other 2, but he was wrong on like 3 major issues. I think it might have been like socialism or whatever. It was the one he was right about. But
well, and if someone like Jordan Peterson gets out there and says, for example, something like, hey, it's one of the things he's real clear about is gender distinctions in the public arena, saying, hey, it totally makes sense that there's more male engineers than female, and more male line workers than female, and more female nurses and social workers. That makes sense, because that's, it's just logical and biological. That's valuable for someone that might, even a Christian that might not see it from that angle. But that's far different than saying, oh, and by the way, he's a Christian pastor over at this church. He's claiming the name of Christ.
Right. And
you're gonna get people following him.
Okay. Anthony came in the chat and said he was actually right about climate change, and that was the one issue he's wrong. He was wrong about Me Too, Trump, and globalist uprising and stuff like that. Actually, I think it would have been more forgivable if he were wrong on the climate change thing, because, my view is that we stand to benefit from a warmer climate on Earth, and the people that want to stop the warmer climate are actually anti-humanity, because they don't want to see they would rather humans perish in an ice age. Because you look at human history, we thrive during warmer periods, the Roman summer, the Middle Ages, and prior to the Black Plague. That was like the end of a warm period. The end of the warm period brought the Black Plague, but the Roman summer, humanity thrives during these warm periods. It's the cold periods where we kind of retract a little bit. So, and we're always one volcanic eruption away from a little bit of an ice age.
Well, everything, did you guys see the one now they're saying that the hurricane, it's because of racism, because it only affects black people.
Why do they have to have only white or Hispanic names?
No, I'm even thinking like, how even make that rip, like the Hurricane Ian in Florida. So it's only affecting black people. Like, it's just like, wow, man, like this is so bad. So bad.
Well, you can always make it because bad things that happen always disproportionately affect people who are less materially well off. That's their little sideways argument, into that.
Yes.
So there's poverty is more common in black communities. Therefore, everything that would negatively affect
this is a
people,
hurricane. Come on, it's just like, man.
Yeah,
so now that's another thing that has also lost its weight, right?
Yeah, Occupy Wall Street or Occupy Democrats Twitter said, Ian, you had one job, and it was a picture of Mar-a-Lago. I think they deleted that, but
well, that was the same account that put out some criticism against the congresswoman that died in the car wreck. Where is she? Why isn't she here? Like weeks after she died.
Wow.
They're
like, how they're a little indignant about
ideology.
her not voting on a bill or whatever. That's
right.
That's something.
It was right before Joe Biden was like, "Where is she?
Oh, wow.
Come on up here," or reminded me of that time he told the guy in the wheelchair to stand up and be recognized. That was before he was like fully senile too.
So that sounds like something he would do. Like, I thought this person was like dead decades ago when I saw the headline that he's referring to a dead, asking about a dead congressman's presence or whatever. I thought that, they died like a long time ago because, it's Joe Biden. So you don't assume it's the most innocent gaffe. And I don't know what, she was 12 and I was 30 means, but and the crowd laughed at that, which is kind of like the weird thing. Like, they didn't like grimace or, they laughed at that like it was a joke. That's the weird thing about
They had to laugh at it.
They have like the laugh sign going. The dude from Shrek just holding up the sign.
Okay, then people know it's time to
applause.
Yes. Aww. So I guess we can start going into Adam Greenway. I think he's a kind of next topic to cover. Adam Greenway ousted, and I think this is just a story that just keeps growing. And I don't like the way that Twitter rumors start, and the fact that I feel like the rumors were more driving the story than the actual sources and people on the ground were. I just take issue with that. But it's pretty interesting that the day after Capstone Report published the thing on Adam Greenway's golden parachute, Adam Greenway has qualms about going to the International Mission Board. I just think that's pretty interesting timing. And it seems like that the International Mission Board was inventing a position to land Adam Greenway at. So that's a pretty interesting story, and it reeks of corruption for obvious reasons. So, David, what's kind of your take on the Adam Greenway thing?
I think the trustees of the IMB didn't want him.
Oh, that's what I think. So you think that he's I'm trying to think of like
persona non grata.
Okay.
But what's his name? He's very cool with Paul Chitwood and Greenway. They're close.
Well, you would have thought so, except Paul Chitwood has come under so much criticism himself that it's like,
Oh, I can't bring you here type thing. Like,
Well,
okay.
it could also indicate that there's more to be revealed about Adam Greenway's time at Southwestern. That's possible.
So what has been alleged is that he had some financial impropriety, nothing like criminal that we know of, but he was using the money, his budget, to allegedly refurbish himself better space because he was very anti Paige Patterson. So he spent a lot of money trying to take down the old and put up the new. So, and that includes his lavish apartment or whatever at the university, because after all, it is a college. And then of course his entire reign there is characterized by being a purgeman. This guy just came in here to purge, and he remade Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary in his own image. So that's what he did. I don't think he could have stopped the money issues that they had, but I think he also made it worse. Like, this guy is basically the head coach of the Cleveland Browns. He can't make that a winning organization, but he can at least make the team not suck as much. I don't know, but he clearly failed at that. So that's kind of like my take at that. Like, and he's unlikable.
To me, I think like they throw him under the bus. Because there is no way that they would, because when he came to SWBT, right, he got rid of people. So there's no way he could have been firing all those faculty without the approval of the trustees. So he was doing what they wanted him to do, and there's no way there's no way he can resign on his own. That's a very nice position. So there's no way they will remove him without giving him somewhere else to go. So the IMB was where he was going to go. Because it doesn't make sense to me. Like, okay, so you're going to resign. Okay, so where are you going? Like, this is not like the Russell Moore situation. Like, okay, I'm out of here. Forget the SBC. You know what I mean? I'm going to set everything out on fire.
Yeah, Russell Moore got a pretty nice gig. And because I don't know what the public theology... I don't know what the public theology thing was at the Christianity or Compromise Today, as I like to call it. But that was basically a tryout for him to be editor-in-chief, because, again, he was put in position of this public theology thing that never really took off, from what I could tell. Like, they started this thing, but it never really went anywhere. He would still just write articles occasionally, but, that was just him being a tryout for editor-in-chief. That's what Russell Moore got. Because they didn't have an editor-in-chief at the time of his hire. And then now he's the editor-in-chief. So they went like a year and a half or whatever without an editor-in-chief.
Yeah, so he got a good soft landing. Not only that, Russell Moore still has influence even inside the SBC. So he's golden. You see what I'm saying? He's winning. Yeah. So I just don't see the Adam Greenway situation. To me, I felt like, you know what? It's time we throw somebody under the bus who is the weakest link, and Adam Greenway was the weakest link, and they got rid of him. And he had no leverage to stay on. So he had to go.
Yeah, and he was a he did act as kind of like, assuming he doesn't find some other position in the SBC, which it sounds like he won't. But assuming he doesn't, he's useful in the sense that now the apparatus, the evangelical intelligentsia, as we like to call them, can now say, see, we're principled. See, I mean, we don't just make positions for people and place them over. It's not an insiders club, because we don't just cover for people that have problems. We actually handle it. And they'll just go right back to the same behavior, after this Adam Greenway thing is over. The next person that comes along and still needs a retirement position somewhere in the SBC, they'll still get it.
I mean, to me, that's why I'm thinking like him, he's just a fall guy, because he wasn't bringing as much money as the other presidents. And with all these issues, so he was the perfect candidate. Okay. Now the DOJ was also questioning more about Southwestern. You know what I mean? So to me, he's a perfect candidate.
And that's another topic that we didn't have for tonight was their investigation.
Yeah.
Which, from what I've heard, is being covered by the Southern District of New York. The prime jewel of the Department of Justice is the Southern District of New York. They're the
and
ones who handle
they'll
the
come after
financial crimes
you.
on Wall Street. This is what the show Billions was about, is the Southern District of New York. So, very high profile.
Now, what are you watching in your spare time, right? Gee whiz.
I don't watch Billions.
I'm just joking.
I've seen the first season, but that's all I've really seen. I don't have cable or Showtime. I think it's on Showtime, but no, I don't watch a whole lot of new TV shows, but I eventually catch up on things. So that's I'm out of date on a lot of things. So
You're missing nothing.
So this is the high profile crown jewel of the Department of Justice. I think they're the same department that's going after Donald Trump, just to put a perspective on it. So if they're investigating the Southern Baptist Convention, it's probably not about sex abuse. Probably about finances.
Oh, and he took the PP loans. Fired people, took the money, and to me, he was just a perfect fall guy. That's how I see. I mean, he was carrying the water. He was just doing like what the 6 presidents do. You see what I'm saying? Al Mohler had his situations at his university over there, but who's going to touch Al Mohler? But somebody had to go. So I think he was the weakest of them all. That's why they got rid of him.
I think at the end of the day, he's not likable. I mean, he's very good. He's a very good enforcer, but he's not likable. He doesn't have the jovial personality of the all shucksness of Ed Litton. Like Ed Litton had like an all shucksness about him. Bart Barber has a reputation for being the nicest guy that, for some reason, Tom Askell thought the campaign strategy, the winning strategy, was to out nice Bart Barber.
I know you can't win like
nice
that.
Him a little bit.
And they had like back and forth Twitter videos about this. It was just so cringe. But that was the reputation of, the reputation of Bart Barber is that he's a super nice guy, even though he's kind of more of a backstabber behind the scenes. I've been in contact a lot with Bobby Lopez about the events at Southwestern, and he believes that him speaking out and David Allen speaking out. David Allen was the other professor to be the most recent high-profile fire of that happened in August, I believe, of Adam Greenway. So he was the second person to speak out about it, despite any NDAs that might have been looming over his head. And he thinks that between these two firings that the walls started closing in.
I would believe that because, David Allen was a big profile, and how that thing went down didn't look good.
Yeah, the problem was David Allen brought the receipts. All of a sudden, David Allen posts on Facebook, just so everybody's aware, I had no desire or agreement with this whatsoever.
Yeah.
And at the point he did that, Greenway and the administration had said something else. So David Allen comes out and says, no. What they just said is not true.
Then he's citing Texas law, employment law, that you can't force someone to retire. That's either true or it's not true. I'm not in Texas, but I'm kind of leaning towards he's probably right about that.
Yeah. So I think, with the David Allen firing as well, all those things you added up, they were like, you know what? Let's just do something clean. And I think that's why they were going to send him over there to IMB. He's cool with Paul Chidwood, and people are like, oh, we don't want him here either. Now they're just going to have to pay him.
What's the other
component to this? His little kerfuffle with Al Mohler at the meeting, at the annual meeting. Because basically Mohler stood up for more or less complementarianism.
The BFM 2000.
Yeah, more or less. And then Greenway stands up and says, well, we're not creedal. He basically makes a case for churches just sort of ignoring the BFM 2000. I guarantee that got under Al Mohler's skin. Guarantee it.
How would it be? Because he had tweeted also after some time.
It might have gotten under Al Mohler's skin, but I think Al Mohler has lost power in the SBC, and I guess that's the next topic is Al Mohler. But
but he's got his finger on the pulse of the pews more than Adam Greenway does. The pews
think-
are on Mohler's side.
But I think the trustees might be more influenced by Al Mohler. So
Yes, that I
That-
agree. It still does have the influence because I just
no, I
wanna
don't
say,
think it's
who's-
Al Mohler per se. I think it's the trustees who would follow Al Mohler's line of thinking, and that they got irked by what Adam Greenway was saying.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That would be.
But
There
I
was
think you're
wo-
right about that, David.
There was Dr. Travis Dickinson, the one who articulated, this is also what's going on, whatever. I got into it with him on Twitter because I said, like, but you weren't saying these things when Greenway was doing his thing at that time, And he was like, well, I don't recall seeing you in the private meetings. I said, well, there were people speaking publicly at that time. So I can't speak what happened in the private meetings because I wasn't there. But, you were silent. He said, yeah, I just don't think speaking publicly is very helpful. Like privately is what's Christian. So I didn't respond. I just let it go. Because I just wanted to, be like, okay, just so we know that you were there, you didn't say anything. So it'll be coming out now.
So I guess one last thing about Adam Greenway that I got to get in, and is Adam Greenway a soy jock? Just saying. This is not Photoshop at all, other than the fact that the soy jock is thrown in there for comparison. And I think at most this is a mirrored image, but otherwise not altered at all. I just,
Well, I had one with Adam Greenway and Russell Moore whispering into his ear, like worm tongue.
No, I like the Bad Baba one. I think it was at the convention where he was kissing. Was that
geez, Griffin?
That wasn't a
College,
Photoshop.
right?
That just happened.
That was not
that's
Photoshop. Even worse.
That's my favorite one.
That was just Todd Bankert, laying a big wet one on Barb Barber.
Yes.
Oh, jeez.
Man.
They didn't say no homo afterwards, did they?
No, I don't know.
Nuh-uh.
They should have.
I think Bad Baba was just so excited, But hey.
Well, yeah. I mean, over at Protestia, we love the Photoshop. We do the Photoshop.
I like to meme people. I mean, the Adam Greenway soy jock is just one of the most. Wow, that really that's uncanny how similar. But otherwise, I photoshopped different organizations' logos and Compromise today. I did that Photoshop nicely, and was it Christian Post? To find the font of Christian Post, you know how hard that was?
I don't know if you can see that, but
I see it. It's a little green.
This is before Adam Greenway was fired. I don't remember how. I don't even know if we used that or I just made it for somebody. But and I've gotten a lot of like negative feedback from people close to me, because I'm still SBC. Church is still SBC, and so I did get some negative feedback, which I really tried to receive in a brotherly fashion about some stuff I had said about Adam Greenway. I got friends at my church that go to Southwestern and they're like, "Are you sure you had to be that mean about it?" I don't know. Probably. That's what I said before we went talking. Yeah, before we went talking about Costy Hen and O'Fallon and Doug Wilson. I said, "What?" I think I told somebody in text, "Well, I might just have to do like the pulpit and pen thing and just make everybody mad. I'm just going to get out there and torch everybody."
And the nerdier the reference, the better, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Hey, yeah. Southwestern is in the news right now.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a school, so nerd out. So that kind of covers the Adam Greenway thing. There's a lot of conspiracy around that, mostly because of it reeks of corruption. And it's like they kind of got caught trying to be more corrupt than they, probably should have been, or could have gotten away with. And so Adam Greenway is just slowly getting shoved out because they probably don't like what's about to be uncovered. Oh, here we go. What's this one? Bart Simpson?
Yeah, this is one nobody else saw.
This is Bart Simpson, Ned
Bart Simpson barber.
Flanders. Oh, wow. But it dresses on Ned Flanders' body. Yeah, it's very interesting, like what they did to Ned Flanders' character. Because if you watch the early episodes of The Simpsons, you ask what I watch in my spare time. I do occasionally go through The Simpsons in order. Like I'm going through them in order just slowly. And it's like Ned Flanders started out, and it wasn't really until like season 2, late in season 2, where they established him as like a fundy. And the purpose of Ned Flanders was to be the neighbor that had everything better than Homer. That was the purpose of Ned Flanders. And just one of the things that was better was the fact that he was a Christian, and that is somewhat a causal reason for why he has everything better. And then they just kind of made him more of a cartoon of himself. But fun facts.
And I made that one that I made Bart Simpson barber for the dissenter.com. I don't know if you ever use it or not, but
but I was happy, he stood his ground when he had his Twitter feud with the Dwight McKissick. So I was surprised.
I mean, Dwight McKissick's a brother, I'm told, by the Conservative Baptist Network. So,
yeah, they played it right when Dwight showed up at the dinner or whatever that was. Like, that was Dwight hoping to get kicked out, and they were smart not to grant that to him.
I think so. I think that's what he thought it was going to happen.
Yeah. Like, I'm going to go talk to John MacArthur, and like John MacArthur is going to burst into flames or something. Like, he's not going to do anything, man.
Yeah, I guess they don't need to tout it on social media, but as like a win. So I guess the next topic is Al Mohler. What's his play? Like, what is this guy up to? So just a bit of an overview. Like, this guy got embarrassed in 2021 when he didn't even make the runoff. Mike Stone and Ed Litton beat him. So that was kind of the starting point for this. Then he's trying to ingratiate himself with the Conservative Baptist Network guys. I think that's one of the most obvious thing, or most long-standing observations. Then he's brought on by Bill Askell, I believe, at the convention to speak about the issue of pastors. And then, and the only thing kind of changing this trajectory is when he came out against Doug Wilson in Moscow with his Niet tweet. Basically trying to put as much distance as he can from Doug Wilson and Moscow, Idaho. But other than that, and then his recent comments on voting conservative and voting with a biblical worldview.
Yeah.
And just basic stuff. But Al Mohler seems to be pivoting back to the conservative camp. And that's kind of the launching pad for this topic. What are your takes on that? What do you think is kind of going on with Al Mohler?
I think this is typical Al Mohler. Like, one thing that you have to grant that guy, he knows when it's time to switch. Because this started when he came out T4G. It was like, okay, he was supposed to be one of the speakers. Then he just sort of like quietly say, oh no, he's not going to be one of the speakers. And then T4G said, no, we're disbanding. We're just going to have one last time. So he already knew that, okay, the walls are closing in. Let me step out. So he did that. And then how he ended up even enforcing now, because he got into it with the Dwight McKissick as well about the voting issue. And he was like, nope, you can't be out there pretty much voting Democrats. This is whatsoever. And then he ended up going to that function where I think DeSantis was the speaker as well. Megan Basham.
NatCon. Yeah.
Yes.
NatCon.
So like before, I think Al Mohler he wouldn't have gone because he likes just to remain quiet and neutral. But right now he's not shy about it. So to me, I do see that's what he's doing. I'm not surprised. Like, you can see a pattern in him. He knows just the right time to jump ship, and he doesn't get, he
If I
doesn't
may
get
ask you a
dirty.
follow-up question,
hmm
why would he jump ship to the losing side?
No, right now it's like, okay, the wind is almost like, okay, it's nice to be conservative, because what side is he going to be on? Like, I don't think he's welcome with the bad barbers of this world. You know what I mean? Like, so he'll be more superstar on the conservative than he would on the other side, because they already have their guy. Kevin is already there. Danny Aiken is already there. So why would he go there and then he'll be at the, you know what I mean? But if he's on this side, then these people, they're gonna be beholden to Al Mohler if he goes to the conservative side, and then he goes to the Kevin Izzo and the Bad Baba side, because they don't need him there.
He sees, despite the fact that Bart Barber won the remote convention in Anaheim, where nobody would travel to, Mohler still sees the larger culture is swinging back in the conservative direction, and so this is the time that he feels safe. He can get out ahead of it a little bit and make nice with the NatCon audience, and make nice with the complementarians, and make sure he's standing up as a strong complementarian. But mark my words, if the Bart Barber, Danny Aiken, Russell Moore kind of wing of evangelicalism, if they sense that Al Mohler is wounded in some way or whatever, they'll drop him like a bad habit. They're only playing nice with him because they're afraid of him still.
So do you think, because that's interesting that you think he's playing to the larger cultural trends, do you think
within
the
evangelical conversation,
Right,
perhaps
okay.
not like in the larger world, but
do
among
you think
us,
that
yeah.
translates to the Southern Baptist Convention and it being winnable in Louisiana next year?
It's possible. It's possible. I think it being in the South. I mean, I'm back and forth. I talked with Rod Martin after the convention, a little while after the convention.
Rod Martin is a believer.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Rod will go down with the ship.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And admittedly, so he'll go down with the ship. He'll be the last one.
Yes.
He'll be
He's
still
the
on
captain.
the Titanic as you see the bubbles coming out of the water. Rod's still on deck.
We've had a lot of memes about bubbles surfacing lately in the last few days.
Yeah, that's Rod, but he does have a point in that it's still possible to flip the other direction. It is. I'm not so sure that that's necessary. But I go back and forth between forget all about this, shake the dust off our feet, and I'm enough of a troublemaker. I always say, evangelical troublemakers over here, that I might stick around just to see what happens, just to kick a few people in the teeth or whatnot.
I mean, New Orleans is hopeful than California was, that's for sure. But which candidates are they going to put forward? I just don't see. And don't forget those guys, they have money. They know how to bring in these church planters to go and vote,
I mean,
so
Tom Askell was a mistake in hindsight. They should have just gone with the least creative strategy. And
I love Tom, but he was a mistake, before hindsight too. So it's how this, and Rod was like convincing us, hey, Tom's the guy, and then he's like, I know what you're gonna think about this. I know that you're gonna think that this is a mistake. Like, yeah, we're gonna think it's a mistake, and I love Tom, but he's not the disruptor that the convention needed. They needed a Trump-like figure, not a nice guy. We needed Trump, and we got it just dispositionally, not anything beyond that.
I mean, I kind of saw him as more of a Ted Cruz, but not on terms of rhetoric, but in terms of let me kind of try to navigate, like not 2015 Ted Cruz, not 2021 Ted. Well, maybe like 2019 Ted Cruz.
Yeah. It was dispositionally not what we needed. We needed someone to go in there and, bloody a few noses and to really, start, kicking rear and taking names, not the guy that, like, after he got beat was doing podcasts about how nice of a guy Bart Barber is. Actually, I could see how this is. He'll do a good job. And like, dude, people traveled, people spent money, people, spent their family's money to travel out to Anaheim to vote for you to oppose Bart Barber. And then 2 seconds later, you're like, he's a nice guy. It's fine.
So
like, what did we all do that for?
Do you see Al Mohler being the champion of the Conservative Baptist Network?
No way.
No, I see a way. If you
No,
look at the
I don't
steering
think
council,
so.
the number of people in the steering council that are Al Mohler's camp, Michael Spradlin, who is the president, I believe it's the title, of Mid-America Baptist Theological Seminary, the outside the cooperative program. He's an Al Mohlerite.
Well, let me clarify. You said Al Mohler being the champion of the CBN. Yeah, that's possible, but I don't see. If that happens, so. The CBN, I mean, ceases to. Assuming it's growing in effectiveness,
I think it's. I've already kind of disavowed the CBN because I don't think they're a good movement.
Yeah. Ray has CBN, but Michael
Fallon is
the CBN, and Michael
really
Fallon doesn't like Al Mohler. And Michael Fallon does have influence.
I think you saw this when the CBN turned on enemies within the church. And that was largely because, this thing goes out heavily after Al Mohler. And Michael Spradlin was pretty much the trigger man on saying, hey, on the turn. Because they wanted to air it at Mid-America Baptist Theological Seminary during a conference that wasn't, that they had paid for and sponsored and stuff.
Yeah, so, and Mid-America had nothing to do with the sponsorship of that at all. It just happened to be there,
Yeah. But the association.
Well, and Mohler's, he's never going, because one of the things that if you want to be a political leader, and that's really kind of what he's always been, you don't admit that you were wrong. It's if Mohler comes out and says, yeah, Aiken's my fault and Greenway's my fault and Chitwood's my fault. All these guys are, you can trace them all back to him. That he's done. He has to pretend like he wasn't involved in that. It wasn't my deal.
Yeah.
And it was.
Didn't most of the restaffing at Southwestern come from Southern Baptist Theological Seminary?
Yeah.
Isn't that largely, that seminary just kind of took over the other seminary in terms of personnel? And
well, there's no way that Adam Greenway would have been the president of Southwestern without Al Mohler's influence.
Yeah.
He was Al Mohler's dean, and you've just basically Me Too'd Paige Patterson, who was like the Arminian side of the conservative resurgence. So Al Mohler being the more Calvinist side. Now Paige has got problems. He's gone, and you won't really only have Al as the figurehead left from the resurgence. He's gonna put people in place he wants if he can.
Yeah, and I guess it's kind of like a forgotten. There's like a nostalgically remembered legacy in the conservative resurgence, and not so much and I guess that kind of clouds the strategy now because they think they can just repeat that same strategy, and theoretically they kind of can, but are they actually repeating the same rhetoric that it took to implement and succeed in that strategy? I don't think the answer is yes.
But if he runs this time around, he might actually have a chance, I think. Imagine Al Mohler running against Bud Barber.
Yep, I almost ran one of the pulpit and pen guys at the last second in 2022. You
should have done that.
Because you can just step on stage and nominate someone, right?
Right. And I was up there. I had the little. I still have it on my desk right here. This was the. I was gonna go number 2 right after.
Okay. You're
Matt
10.
Hensley was gonna nominate Bart Barber. Like Ray doesn't know about this. I don't think. I walked up there with a nominee in hand because I'm like, I saw I read the tea leaves. I'm like, this is not going to go well for Tom Askell. He can't win.
They kept thinking that Twitter was real life, so all the references that they're saying were so esoteric to the audience that was in the room.
Mm-hmm. Because on the Twitter he was gaining momentum. There was a large support.
The moment I knew that it wasn't going to go for Tom Askell was when Rick Warren gets up there and I see half the room stand up to give the man a standing ovation. Like, these people aren't voting for Tom Askell. This is over. It's done.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is the biggest repudiation of the Southern Baptist Convention I think I've seen in my lifetime. And like that, I haven't been to SBC that long.
And we talked earlier on the stream that, the whole, we don't know what a pastor is because we want to invent a distinction between a senior and a non-senior pastor. It's like, well, Rick Warren's replacement co-pastors with his wife.
Yeah.
So good luck with that fig leaf.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it sort of ruins the whole, because Saddleback's argument was always that there's a difference between the office and the gifting. So we're going to call these women pastors based off of the fact that the to the church is given pastors, like it's a spiritual gift. And that, but if Andy Wood or whatever his name is actually functionally pastoring with his wife, then that argument's out the window, which, I mean, we all knew it was anyway. It was just a little rhetorical bait and switch.
Even funnier that it's now explicitly out the window. Like, these people won't have any more. It's going to be so in your face.
Yeah. It's just, they're just liars. That's all it is. They're just liars.
Yeah.
Rick Warren's a liar.
Yeah.
So
man, and he had that exclusive time on the microphone, man.
Right. So we know it's not going to happen, right? So we see this is like, it's not going to happen. And so I'm chatting with some of the other guys and they're like, "Oh, you should nominate I'm not going to say who it is because like I'll get him. Well, I think I could say it now because I guess he may be moving to another church. You know what? I'll wait on it. But one of the pulpit and pen guys, he was a Southern Baptist at a Southern Baptist church. I go up there with his name and I'm talking to like the proctor, like, I'm nominating this guy. He's at this church and this is that. I'm waiting in line. It's going to be like, so I'm standing there next to Matt Hensley and Mike Stone because Mike Stone's going to stand up to nominate Askell. And so, what the guy said is, if you nominate somebody for president, you get like 6 uninterrupted minutes on the mic.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there in my chair, like typing up this speech that's all targeted at Bart Barber. Like, not even
that would have
name,
been awesome. 6
Yeah,
minutes
it
on
was
the
going to be something
microphone.
like, and Ed Litton. It was targeted at Ed Litton. So it's going to be like, if you vote for my guy, he guarantees he will not be plagiarizing sermons, and he guarantees that he's, all this stuff. I was just going to go hard at him, like, and I'm in shorts, like a polo shirt and shorts. Everybody else is up there in a suit and tie. The proctor's like, I think this is going to be the first time someone was nominated by a guy wearing shorts, or whatever. And then at the last second, we're about to go. I start getting frantic texts from the guys like, no, we were just joking. I'm like, guys, I don't get nuance from a text conversation. I didn't know you were joking. Like, I'm about to do this. This is going to be historic. It's not going to go for time anyway. We might as well make the headlines. And that would have been a much better headline than "Here's Bart Barber, the president of the SBC."
But
it would have been more like those jerks at Pulpit and Pen and Protestia ruined everything again.
It's funny because, what was it in the 2020 presidential debates when, what's his name? Fat Governor? Chris Christie.
Oh, Chris
Christie?
Yeah.
Went after Marco Rubio and sank Marco Rubio, but it was to no benefit of Chris Christie. So that's what you would be. You would be playing spoiler against Bart Barber to no benefit for your own candidate, but it would be very effective, I think, in the moment.
If he's going to lose anyway, we might as well win the headline war,
Exactly.
Let's just have fun with it.
And make a moment, just be the the best moment in a political debate history was, Donald Trump saying not a problem when Marco Rubio tried to like play Donald Trump for a second. Best moment in debate history. And that's it. Didn't work for Marco Rubio. Actually, do what Chris Christie did. Don't do what Marco Rubio did in response. But, and that's kind of how debates work. If you go negative, it'll negatively affect them, but it might not positively affect you. So maybe we should have that spoiler strategy. But I don't think people can get on board with that.
Yeah, people would have voted Bart Barber in anyway.
Yeah.
But it would have been, the speech would have been in all the publications and all that. And I was disappointed that they chickened out, honestly.
Because you were willing to go. I don't understand why they chickened out, because it would have been you on the stage, right?
Well, it's because I had to say who it was.
Oh,
yeah. Like, he didn't want to be
nominating.
and then like later he texted like one of the pastors at his church to say what happened, and the guy's like rolling on the floor laughing. It's like, that would have been hilarious. Like, this would have been great.
So, and going back to Al Mohler, I think legacy is kind of what's on his mind. This is a guy who does not want to quit at the bottom. Like he'd much rather quit at the top of his game, maybe make a somewhat of a career resurgence. He doesn't want to get strung out like Brett Favre and just play until he embarrassingly can't anymore. But he'd rather go out like Tom Brady. Tom Brady might not be in the best shape of his life, but he's still smart enough to stay in the game. And that's kind of what Al Mohler wants to do. Because Tom Brady's like 44 years old, I think.
Yeah, he's 44. Yeah, but
He's
with
44 years
Al,
old.
where he is right now, he's, the president over there at the top of his game. He's not, he's fine. His job is not threatened. So he's just going to retire when he wants to. So either way, things are already working out for him, so to speak. He can stay at that position for as long as he wants.
Right.
Well, and the
So-
seminary presidents are like little mini popes. I mean, honestly, as far as their influence, like they always have the bully pulpit, so they can always say something, and everybody perks up and listens in the SBC, even more than the heads of the other institutions. It's the main argument that's made for staying in the SBC. Well, we got to fight because 1/3 of vocational ministers are come out of SBC seminaries, so they have a fair amount of influence over the narrative, even if we would say, that the like Southwestern is getting smaller, right? Southwestern is enrollment is declining and money is declining and all this kind of thing. Like it used to be bigger than Southern, in terms of enrollment, and then it's gone below now under Greenway. So.
Yeah, and you have all these guys. They're coming out of Kentucky, right? You have the Adam Greenway, Russell Moore, Kevin is all these guys. They come out of there, have all these prominent positions. So I think it's fine, and I think with that NDAs, so he's protected, right? Nobody's going to do anything to him because people have signed those.
All right. David's about to depart from us, but any parting words on just, I guess, the situation at the SBC, or any last minute stories you want to tell and regale us with your triumphs at the annual Southern Baptist Convention of 2022?
Well, the guys told me that I should make a video because we do some videos and things and funny comedy stuff. And I mean, we sent up Kyle J. Howard and we sent up Andy Stanley recently. And it's just like fun stuff that we do. Just to keep things light. But the guys told me you need to make a video of you giving the speech you were gonna give at the meeting,
Yeah,
and just put it together for and you can put booze in the whole 9 yards. And with the speech that almost happened,
that never happened. Let me save it for New Orleans.
Yes, exactly. I'll just replay, like sub out Ed Litton and put in Bart Barber instead.
All right. You have a good evening. You're free to go.
All right, guys. I'll see you
later. Nice seeing you, David. Good night.
Night.
Because he's on mountain time.
Yeah, he's on mountain time, but I'm East Coast and I still got give or take 5 hours left in my night. Because I roll like that, I'm an owl.
Okay, you're like me.
Yeah, and I can get away with certain things, and so I do. And one of those things I can get away with is little sleep.
Oh, but... no, I have to. No, I can stay up late, but I have to sleep. I have to sleep. Like I can sleep. I can sleep till 2 p.m. in the afternoon with no problem at all. I can go to bed at 3 a.m. It's fine.
Yeah, and 3 a.m.'s early for me. I just, I stay up late just doing this oftentimes. Like, you would not believe, what was it? The other night I did a video. I started that video and found a topic after 3 a.m. I'm like, I need to do a video to stall me off to Thursday. What topic am I going to do? It's stuff like that. And then one time, like, it was the Gospel Coalition video that I did that got like over 1,500 views in like a couple days. I'm like, this was like one of my, I put less work into that one than some of these other videos that didn't feel as high. It's like, wow, this had way better results. And then everyone started doing stuff on the Gospel Coalition after that. Like, John Harris had a Gospel Coalition video that came out after that. It's like, wow, everyone's touching on the Gospel Coalition. I just did this at 3 a.m. because I didn't know what else to do it on. So, and it's just a topic that's in my head. Like, I have some written down topics that eventually I'm going to cover. And, I want to do like a little mini doc or something on Sean Foyt, because I think he's a very enigmatic character in this evangelical world. And then I want to do something more on Joel Osteen, but not in a low-hanging fruit sense, but in a way that more convicts us in like, broader evangelicalism for taking influence from Joel Osteen or trying to keep up with Joel Osteen as though what he has is desirable. So I want to take it more in that direction.
I hear his numbers are declining at Lakewood, so I don't know why.
Yes, that is somewhat the inspiration for me wanting to go in that direction. So, but since we are in Southern Baptist conspiracies, I think we should close out by talking about some Southern Baptist conspiracies, or maybe just like a power ranking of the Southern Baptist Convention, because most powerful person in the Southern Baptist Convention is Kevin Ezell. I don't think there's, he's kingmaker.
Yeah, but now I hear they've started the depositions of Will McCraney case. So if that comes out, because Kevin is implicated in those, who knows?
Well, he's still got at least a year before he's got a long time to do more damage before that ever comes into fruition. He might be more threatened by an FBI investigation, in my opinion. But at the moment, he's still, if we're doing a power rankings, which doesn't necessarily mean actual, which is more about perceived than, say, paper power. So, if you're doing power ranking of football teams, it might not reflect their record or standing and stuff. So he's number one, and he's the kingmaker. He made Bart Barber. Bart Barber was in the bullpen, and Ed Litton was supposed to go on, but he had to get the ball taken away from him.
Yeah.
And then he calls in Willie Rice, and then Willie Rice had to get the ball taken away from him after like one at bat.
Yeah.
And he gave
Which
up a
means if
walk
the
or
Will
whatever.
Rice scandal didn't happen, Will Rice would have also won.
Willie Rice would have been president right now.
Yeah.
And then he's the manager making these calls. So we just switched from football to baseball in our analogies, but we made a lot of sports references tonight. And I don't even watch that much sports. And it's not because of lack of interest. It has more to do with I don't have cable. And those
YouTube TV, you don't have to have cable. You can have YouTube TV.
And I don't want to pay YouTube. I'm on YouTube. I'd say I'm on YouTube to make money, but the amount of money you get from ads is pathetic. It really is.
Just give them right back.
Yeah, exactly. But so he's number one. Who would you say is number two? I have in mind, because it's not
right
Adam
now,
Greenway.
No. Greenway is
I'd say it's Danny Aiken, but it could also.
Yeah, you're
be
right. He's been quiet even with this issue. I didn't see him saying anything.
So Danny Aiken, I think, has been the main benefactor of Al Mohler falling out of the good graces of the former biumvirate, as I'd call it. Because
Al Mohler was powerful.
It was Al Mohler and Kevin Ezell kind of sharing power, and I think Kevin Ezell just usurped that in 2021.
Yeah,
so,
these guys.
And Danny Aiken was on team Kevin Ezell, and I think he's been the main benefactor of that power move. And then number three might be Bart Barber.
You think so? I think Bart Barber
that's
the one they just used to, get things done.
But
I just don't see.
Who would be three, though?
No, I mean, I'll put Bart Barber there. I mean, he's an SBC president, so he's appointing people to positions right now. But I can see him consulting Kevin Ezell. So who should we give XYZ, that type of thing? He doesn't strike me somebody who would do something independent.
I'm questioning who to put at number 4, though. Because, again, it's like, well, who's
I can put Al Mohler there. I can put Al Mohler there. Al Mohler still has the influence.
And
he still does have the influence.
I think maybe, a year ago he might have been a 5, but now I think he has improved his influence. I think Al Mohler has improved his outlook, because I think the Conservative Baptist Network is too squishy to really call him out.
Yeah, but I do give Kevin Izzo is definitely at the top. He's number 1.
Yes.
Adam Greenway was the weakest link. That's why, to me, I feel like take care of everything and like, okay, we have a 4 guy, off he goes.
And I got to say that Paul Chitwood would probably be number 5.
Before Al Mohler or after Al Mohler? I think
after Al Mohler currently.
I'll grant that, because I think Al Mohler still up there.
Paul Chitwood's part of the IMB, that is, the crown jewel of the Southern Baptist Convention. So as long as he looks like he's doing his job, here's a lot of.
I think he is. I mean, he wasn't able to keep his friends to go to IMB, so.
Well, I'm concerned about his vaccine mandate and whatever became of that.
Oh, remember, even Al Mohler had joined in with Ben Shapiro, denouncing the vaccines.
You can always count on Ben Shapiro to be the last one to be right on an issue. So
he's getting big, though. His platform is getting big.
I mean, it's been huge. It's top 3 in conservative media, but it's like, he's to the left of most of his audience, I would say. Or he's onboarding material. Like PragerU, I think is just a shadow of its former self. Like in 2018, they were hard-hitting videos, very good, very succinct. Then they kind of wanted to go to podcast route, and that just kind of diluted them. And
I don't think they wanted to have a lot of young people, because they do have quite a few young people there.
I think Candace Owens, once they brought on Candace Owens, it went downhill for them.
But what's the name picked her up, because she's with the Daily Wire now. She seems to be doing good.
Yeah, I guess, but I have less problems with her because I think she's actually a lot more genuine. I do think, her background is shady. Look at look up social autopsy, and you know how she got famous, and then she built a backlash from Gamergate into a conservative brand, which good for her, I guess. But
yeah, I think she knows how to play the game.
She knows how to play the game, and you know what? I find myself agreeing with her a lot more than a lot of other people at the Daily Wire. So, more power to her for now.
She knows how to play the game.
So we had 5 at Paul Chitwood. Number 6, I'm not sure who to put there. Brent Leatherwood comes to mind. He's got to be somewhere in the top 10.
Yeah, I forgot about Brent Leatherwood. You know what? I'll put Brent Leatherwood before Paul Chitwood.
Nah, I don't think Brent Leatherwood is. He's more of a rookie on the scenes, in my opinion.
You think so?
I mean,
to me, I don't know, because even the position that he had taken, the fact that he survived those positions tells me he has people on his corner, people higher ups. Because they shouldn't have given him.
You know who I think is more powerful than Brent Leatherwood? Dwight McKissick. Or, even someone like
Dwight
Tony
McKissick
Evans, I think has
the influence. You see what I'm saying? Because whatever he says, you have all the black people, all the woke people will always stand by Dwight McKissick.
But I think Tony Evans has more sway than Dwight McKissick.
Yes, I'll grant that, but what's the difference, honestly?
So I think it's pretty difficult to come up with the top 10 power rankings. Like, we're struggling to get past 5 here.
But no, I think he does have good endorsements, Tony Evans. But I think Dwight McKissick will always be a thorn on people's side. Because I was surprised that he got into with Bad Baba. You see what I'm saying? But Baba stood his ground, which I did appreciate. So you
mean,
just can't count on Dwight McKissick. Like
you
I don't
know,
think you want that
the
guy
funny
on your
thing
team.
is, being someone who wants to end abortion or the equal rights side of the abortion debate is more of an offense to Bart Barber than plagiarizing sermons on
Yeah.
a serial
Well,
basis.
yeah, that's true.
It's just hilarious. But Bart Barber, I think, is going the feminist route. Actually, somewhere in the top 10 has got to be Rachel Den Hollander. I don't even know if she's Southern
Oh, how can
Baptist,
we
but
forget that?
in
How
the
can we
Southern
forget
Baptist Convention,
Rachel?
she is one of the most
Yes,
powerful
she is a powerful
figures
woman
pulling
in
the
there.
strings.
That
And
she is.
so
Rachel, she's definitely
no,
up there.
she's in the top. She just bumped out Paul Chitwood in the top 5 easily.
I believe you. Because especially right now with the Church 2 movement, and with what's happening inside the SBC, right? Even Bad Barber, these people want to support these women, so to speak, right? All this sex abuse. That's the biggest topic right now in the SBC. So Rachel is right there with those issues. And who can denounce her anyway?
I mean, she is slated to get, because last year we did the Evo Awards, and mark your calendar, we're probably going to do that the last Thursday in December,
Okay.
the Evo Awards. And
And
last
they are
year
what
Francis
goes to
last year, yes, exactly. Last year Francis Collins got Villain of the Year, Church Villain of the Year, Francis Collins. And this was before Megan Basham wrote a single article about Francis Collins, by the way. So we were ahead of the curve on that. But
I
this
think
year, I'm thinking Rachel Den
French.
Hollander is.
Rachel or David French?
No, David French doesn't get the Villain Award. A lot of people in my audience, because I did a snap poll on this, they voted Rick Warren over Rachel Den Hollander, but I think Rick Warren might fit more under worst teacher. Because I have best teacher, worst teacher, church hero of the faith, or hero of the faith of the year, and then villain of the faith of the year, church villain.
Yeah,
and I think Rachel Den Hollander is church villain of the year just because she is pulling the strings in the Southern Baptist Convention.
Oh, she is.
So
especially with these investigations going on, you bet Rachel's
she got
all
paid.
over the place.
So she got paid, assuming she takes a third of that settlement money that she got. That was over $1 million. She got paid a lot of money.
Rachel, she's at the top. She's up there.
So, and then she's also in the PCA as well.
I don't understand. Like, man, you're telling me there's no other people who can speak on these issues?
Well, she has clout with the popular culture until she started defending Amber Heard. But, I'm just going through. I guess, maybe I'll do the last thing is just tease the Evo Awards, because
that'll be fun.
It was a lot of fun last year. I'm trying to look for heroes of the year. So if you think that someone is actually, no, it's best teacher. Best teacher is kind of what I'm looking for, because I do have one nominee that's a little bit, I don't want to say esoteric, but someone just had a really good moment. And then I'm having trouble coming up with a rookie of the year, although maybe Brent Leatherwood might be that. No, he was terrible, but
no. But he scored a very, very good position for himself.
David French last year, he got the Player Hater Award, I believe, for just being such a hater. So
David French.
And then who else was a
what
big
about
winner?
Russell Moore needs to make a cut.
Russell Moore just, always a second place finish, So he was kind of like the alternative for villain of the year, but it was Francis Collins' year. Like, this guy was pushing the jab, and who knows how many people have died because of him. And I'm not being hyperbolic when I say that. So how many people have died because of Francis Collins funding, a certain lab in China?
Man, these people, man.
And then Big Eva touts him. Tim Keller touts him.
I know.
So, and then I'm just trying to come up with the top 10 stories I'm already planning the end of the year. It's
okay,
what are the top 10?
Fun.
What are the top 10 stories of the year? And it's like, well, what's left that could happen? And it'll be interesting to kind of see what caps off the rise of Christian nationalism, because we're going to see in the 2022 elections if Doug Mastriano wins in Pennsylvania, which is increasingly looking more likely.
Or against Dr.
Shapiro.
Oz?
No, Dr. Oz is running for Senate.
Okay.
So Doug Mastriano is running for governor. Oz is running for Senate. They could actually help each other out just because they're very different kinds of candidates. One's like a base Christian nationalist. The other's Dr. Oz.
I know.
So terrible candidate, but that's just what we have to look forward to. Otherwise, you can support this kind of ministry at evangelicaldarkweb.org/join. That is in the description below. And you can do that on our Patreon-like system for $5 a month. That gets you access to behind the paywall type of pages and posts, which I'll be doing more snap polls for this EVO Awards that I just touted. You can kind of vote for that because I don't have every category thought out. And there's an exclusive Telegram chat that I launched earlier this week that I need to get my own current subscribers onto or into because, I'm trying to launch that. That should be a nice little pipeline for exclusive announcements or early announcements on what's coming down the pike. So
that's cool.
But otherwise, follows the Telegram or the subscribe to the newsletter. You can do that also to get updates on what's going on. Because a lot of what we talked about in the stream, articles were written on that a while ago. So we didn't, I just didn't do a video on it. I do more articles than videos. So you should check out evangelicaldarkweb.org. Violet, you can plug yourself now.
Oh, no, thanks for having me. We always have fun. We wandered away, but hey, we made it. So I appreciate you having me on. You can follow me on Twitter at Berean Babes, and that's the name of my channel as well. So thank you for having me on, Ray.
All right. You all have a blessed evening. And if you're still watching and you haven't subscribed, what are you doing? And don't forget to hit the like button on your way out. Have a blessed night, and we will catch you on the next one.